Hey there YouTube, welcome to another Tech Me Out video. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. And as long as you are here, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you will be notified when new videos come out. In this video, we are continuing our series of videos about Synology's Active Backup for Business. And this time will actually be the first time we are doing it in DSM version 7, which is very exciting for me. The topic of today's video is revisiting Synology's Active Backup for Business virtual machine backup capabilities. And if you haven't watched our last video about Synology's Active Backup for Business VMware virtual machine backup, I will put a link to it right here in the top right corner. Be sure to watch it because that video had an emphasis on the backupping part of the process. And in today's video, I will try to put an emphasis on the restoration portion of the process. And in particular, I will be focusing on instant restoring, which in a nutshell is taking the virtual machine backup and not transferring it back to the VMware host or wherever. It's taking the backup data and instantly restoring it or powering on that virtual machine as a Synology VMM virtual machine. And what's the use case for that? Well, let's say you have a few virtual machines, but some of them are very critical, business critical, domain controllers, wherever, and you suffered a loss or some sort of a corruption, and you now have the option, instead of waiting for the data to transfer back from Synology's storage back to your ESXi's data stores, you can take these virtual machines and instantly powering them on as Synology's VMM virtual machines. Now, this will give you the option to go back to business in an instant, and then maybe get a damage assessment meetings or a backupping strategies meeting. Maybe you power it on instantly right now and do a full backup to VMware maybe overnight or at the weekend. But that's the core of the functionality or the main benefit of being able to instant restore virtual machines. I will show you exactly how easy it is to configure and how almost unchanged the process is from DSM 6 and right now to DSM 7. And the main benefit is that in DSM 7, we are now fully compatible with VMware vSphere version 7, which we didn't in DSM 6. So, without further ado, let's jump over to the computer and see how this is done. Join me. Alright, so we are at the computer and now we can see that we are in front of our virtual machine environment in our vCenter server. And just for the sake of this video, I prepared a virtual machine, plain old Windows 10 virtual machine, but it can be a Windows server, a Linux server, or whatever. This is just for demonstration purposes. But we will try to keep these things simple and summarized as possible, but we need to start at the beginning. And the beginning is maybe a question of how do we even make the initial connection between our vCenter server and our Synology NAS. So I will jump over to my secondary NAS and I will jump to my Active Backup for Business application and to the virtual machine tab. This is where we initially give the credentials and the FQDN or the IP address of our vCenter server in order to make the initial connection. Let's do the process together and click on Manage Hypervisor right here and click on Add. We will give our FQDN but you can also supply an IP address if it suits your environment. Now, as for the account, the easy way is to just give the administrator account, the domain admin, or the SSO domain admin, like administrator at vSphere local or something. Using an administrator account will work, but it's not the safest way or the securest way to do it. I am in the domain environment. I created a service account dedicated for connecting Synology's Active Backup for Business to my virtual machine infrastructure, and I have assigned it the minimal amount of permissions I can in order to avoid over permissioning, and I will give a link in the description section of the video to a Synology's knowledge base article on what exact permissions the service account needs to have in order to, in one aspect, do its job while not over permissioning it. So definitely be sure to follow this article, because we do want to leave some sort of security in mind. So I will give my service account right here. And I will click on yes. Let's try again. All right, maybe I made some sort of a mistake on the password, but as we can see, now we are successfully connected to our vCenter server, and our virtual machines and hosts will begin populating in this window. That's great. That means we are ready to now make backup tasks in our Active Backup for Business, and then we will see how to restore, and in particular instant restore. But first, something that I have learned the hard way, and I would like to share with you before you encounter issues with it. If you have a Windows operating system, you need to make some sort of a modification in your VMware tools installation. Without doing this particular step, backup tasks will fail because of this particular component we are now trying to get rid of. So let's log in to this virtual machine. Alright, so we are at the desktop, and actually instead of going through the process of control panel, programs and features, and selecting VMware tools and then click change, let me show you a quick shortcut. I have the command right here, which I will also put in the description field of this video. Let's copy this command and open command prompt as administrator. And type in the command we have just copied. Click on next, click on modify. And the component we need to get rid of is this one right here, volume shadow copy service support. And we will click on the X. We don't want it. It will cause our backup tasks to fail. Let's get the removal process going. And after doing this process, I always like to restart the virtual machine. But now the virtual machine is ready to be handled by Active Backup for Business virtual machine process. Let's wait for the machine to come back online, just to make sure everything works and the machine is online in regards to network connectivity. Alright, seems like it's up, and it's indeed up. Alright, so in our primary device, let's click on Active Backup for Business and create a backup task for this virtual machine. I will go to create task right here. I will select the folder of my virtual machine and check my virtual machine. This is the virtual machine I want to backup. Let's give this backup task a name, TMO test. Let's click on next, select a shared folder. I always choose the default Active Backup for Business shared folder. That's fine by me. Let's click on next. Let's click on application aware backup. That's fine. Now I'm not going to enable data transfer compression, because if you click on this information button right here, it suggests that in backup in compression, a slow network and reduced time of backup. I want my backups to be as fast as possible, and also enabling the compression will, as far as I understand, make instant restoration not available for us. So I will leave it unchecked. And also the encryption, something that slows down the backupping process, and I want them to be as fast as possible for this demonstration. So I will leave these settings as they are and click on next. Alright, so in this case the virtual machine has been inspected and seems like it's compatible and can be backed up. Let's click on next. I will do a manual backup, but we can definitely create a scheduled backup. But for now we'll create a manual backup just because we are going to delete this backup task once we are done with this video. I'm not going even to bother with retention policies, because for me in this video, in this virtual machine, there will be no retention. Click on next. You can assign, if your Synology is joined to your domain, you can assign domain groups or domain users restoration privileges for this virtual machine. For now, we'll just stick with the admin user, and actually we're giving local administrators group the restoration privileges. That's fine. And click on done and backup now. Yes, I do want to backup this virtual machine now. And of course, since we are emphasizing this video on the restoration process, we have not been talking a lot about the creation of this backup task. And as always, I will pause the recording right here and resume it once the backupping process is complete. Alright guys, so actually offline I had to recreate the backup task from scratch, because something that I didn't pay attention to, the destination shared folder that I selected was a shared folder that compression was enabled on the shared folder itself, and thus when I wanted to restore the virtual machine, the instant restore option was grayed out. So what I had to do a classic restore back to VMware of the virtual machine, and then I had to recreate the backup task from scratch, and I selected a different shared folder that doesn't have a compression enabled on it. So now the backup task is finished, and again let's go ahead and shut down the virtual machine. Here's the virtual machine backup task. Again, we'll click on restore, click on next, and here the last time I had this option completely grayed out. I was unable to select it. So now the backup destination shared folder is not compression enabled, and thus the instant restore option is available for us. So what I will do, again, I will this time remove from inventory. That's okay for me. I will go ahead and start the instant restore of the virtual machine. Click on next. I'm selecting the storage that actually the VMM needs to have access to. Click on next. Virtual machine name, that's fine. Same CPU, same amount of memory. VGA card, that's fine. Virtual disk, let's for now, you know what, let's not touch anything. It's an instant restore. Let's just roll with it and click on next. Same network, that's fine. The backup, the restoration process does allow us to install the VMM guest tools by mounting the ISO of the guest tools. For now, we will not even touch that. The goal of this restoration process is just to instantly, after we suffered some sort of a disaster, to just get the virtual machine online and connected to the network. So let's click on next through everything and power on the virtual machine after its creation. And now what VMM will actually do is import the backup data into VMM, create a virtual machine, and start it as a native VMM virtual machine, much like any other virtual machine in the list here. So let's give it a few minutes to work, import the data, get all the configurations ready. At this point, I will again pause the recording and start it once the entire process is finished and the virtual machine is up. Alright, so the creation of the virtual machine is completed. For some reason, it didn't power on automatically. I had to power it on manually, but it did power on. It went through a process of, if you recall, when installing Windows, it goes through a process of getting devices ready, and eventually it takes a little bit of time, but it takes substantially less than doing a classic restore back to VMware. So the virtual machine is up, it's running, Windows is loaded, and now let's take a quick peek just to make sure. That's it, Windows is loaded. If we want to get the virtual machine completely compatible with the Synology's VMM, then we might install Synology's VMM guest tools. But I'm guessing that it is irrelevant, because at some point we will want to migrate the virtual machine back to its original location, which is the ESXi server and not the VMM server. And speaking of which, let's say you suffered some sort of a disaster, you launched the instant restore process in the morning, and now with the entire workday the virtual machine and the application was available and business had a certain amount of continuity, and now it's the end of the workday and you want to migrate the virtual machine back to its original location. If you'll just launch a new restore task, you will lose a few hours of work, because it will restore the virtual machine from the point it backed up, and not after the 8 or 10 hours of work that you have from the morning done on this virtual machine running on Synology's VMM. For this specific use case, there is a solution. We can go back to our Active Backup for Business, to the restore status. This is where a lot of people suddenly, maybe not aware of the feature or forget about it. But if you go to the restore status, here we have a magic button that's migrate VM. I will not do the entire process right now. Of course, let's shut down the virtual machine. I will not do the entire process right now because it's irrelevant for me right now, but the migrate VM button, as we'll see in a few minutes, will let you migrate the virtual machine, not to do a full restore. The restoration was already done into VMM, but it will migrate the virtual machine from VMM back to its original location, the ESXi server, without losing the X amount of work or changes that have been done since you instant restored it, and to the point that you want to get the virtual machine back to its original location. So now the virtual machine is off. Let's click on Migrate VM, restore back to VMware vSphere, and then you will select the location, the server, the actual ESXi host, and like a classic restore to VMware process, without losing the delta of the amount of changes that have been done to the virtual machine. So that's how easy it is to use the virtual machine capabilities, both to backup and to instant restore, and then to migrate back to its original location. I hope this video was helpful and informative. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you will be notified when new videos come out. If you have any other questions, suggestions, maybe something new to teach me. If I missed something, please let me know in the comment section below. I will be happy to read your comments and reply to them. And I will see you all in the next video. Thank you for being with me.